Can everybody hear and see? Can everybody hear and see? Okay, cool. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. So, alhamdulillah, continuing with our discussion on man logic. I want you brothers and sisters to pay, especially the brothers, especially the men, I want you guys to pay very close attention to this discussion today. Because this discussion involves, I would say, 85 to 90% of the men in our communities. Especially African American Muslim men. Especially. But every man in some point, most men, not every man, but most men at some point in their lives has gone through this phase. And it's important that we bring it to the forefront and we begin to have a discussion about these things, man, because we've ruined a lot of lives. A lot of lives have been ruined because of this mentality that we're going to talk about today. A lot of people have been manipulated into believing that they are worthless, have been demoralized, because of this mentality that we're talking about today. And the man logic we're talking about today is the superhero rescuer syndrome. I'll say that again. The superhero rescuer syndrome. This is where a man feels like he can save every woman that he perceives is endangered. Right? There's a lot wrong with this mentality, and we're gonna get to the bottom of this, because there's a lot of men in our communities who suffer from this, and as a result of that have destroyed their spirit as men. So obviously, when we talk about these concepts, we always want to bring Islam into the discussion. All right, this is the problem with a lot of our Muslim professionals. Women have this mentality too, and trust me, when I'm done with man logic, we are going to double back. We are going to double back, and we are going to address issues related to women. But I do a lot of things related to the women, so I felt like I wanted to dedicate a lot of this time to the men and dealing with some of our, dealing with a lot of the man logic that kind of keeps getting us in trouble as men, right? The man logic that, that keeps getting us in trouble. All right. So I wanted to take time out and address some of the men issues, because I don't know, men tend to think I only can speak about women's issues. So I'm going to put all our stuff on the table too, man. I'm going to put our stuff on the table too. All right. So we're dealing with man logic, right? The superhero rescuer syndrome. All right. And this is a real syndrome, right? Psychologists have dealt with this. It's called parentification, right? This is the role reversal where the child starts to act like the parent. And I'll get back to that. Right now, let's look at, does Islam say anything about this mentality? First of all, there's a verse that we usually use as it relates to marriage, right? We commonly use this verse as it relates to marriage, but the verse points to something a little bit deeper. All right, it points to something a little bit deeper. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله به بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, listen to this ayah, because we've heard this ayah a million times, but I don't think that we look at the diqqah, the precision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, الرجال قوامون على النساء. Men are قوامون. Al-qawama, they are protectors and maintainers of women. Qawamuna is the plural of qawam. Al-qayyim, right? They are the caretakers of women. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say husbands are the maintainers of their wives. Understand what I'm saying? So this is a more general comment about the nature of men. Usually when we look at this ayat, we apply it to the husbands taking care of their wives. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not use the word husband in this ayat. It was a very general statement. He said ar-rijal, men, meaning that there is a disposition here, a predisposition with men, with males, that we take on the role of caretakers over women, right? The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned that towards the last days, right? Towards the last days, that for every 50 women, there will be qiyamun wahidun. Qiyamun wahidun. He used the same word that Allah used in the ayah, qawamun, which is the singular of it. Qawamun is the plural. The singular is qiyam. Qiyamul wahid. For every 50 women, there will be one caretaker. That's a whole other conversation. Because that's speaking to the change in relationships towards the last days. That marriages will no longer be about husband and wife to get to Jannah together and feeding off of one another and, steel sharpening steel and, nah. Relationships will eventually morph into men being reduced to just a caretaker. My husband is a good provider, right? We've done seminars and have asked women, what is the greatest quality that you love about your husband? He's a great provider. Totally dismiss him as a human being and all of the self-sacrifice and all of the selflessness and all of the things that he brings to the table as a husband. And the one thing that you pick out of all of his characteristics is that he is a good provider. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Because that's what a lot of relationships have been reduced to. As a matter of fact, sometimes a relationship begins to break down because he's no longer fulfilling that role of provider. Meaning the essence of our relationship is based upon your provision. Meaning the moment you stop providing, I no longer see you, or you're no longer deserving of the rights that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, because all I see you is as the provider. And sisters, make no mistake about it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ar-razaq. Allah is your provider. Your husband is your facilitator. All right, I've said it 1,000 times. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ar-razaq. Allah is your provider. Your husband is the facilitator of the provision that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already decreed for you to have. And even if you separate from your husband, as Allah says in the Quran, وَإِن يَتَفَرَّقَانِ, and if the two couples decide to separate, يُغْنِهِمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِ, Allah will continue to provide for both of them from His bounty. You understand? So even when you separate from your husband, Allah is still your provider. He said, even if you decide to separate, if they decide to separate, يُغْنِهِمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِ, Allah will continue to provide for them, just as He did when you were married. He will continue to provide for you, even though you're gone, you're separated. Understand? So stop saying your husband is your provider, because it's dismissive of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's haqq over you to be acknowledged as ar-razaq, the only provider. It's dismissive of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's right over you. All right? So back to the point that I was making, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the ayat, الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, that men, He didn't say husbands, He said men are the protectors and maintainers, the caretakers of women, not wives. This is not a husband and wife thing, although we look at the ayah in the context of husband and wife relations. It's not about the husband and wife. Allah was very general, showing you that men have they have a predisposition of being the caretaker, looking after the opposite sex, right? When a man is riding in the car with his wife and he sees a woman pulled over on the side of the road trying to fix her tire, he almost feels like it's an obligation. It is a duty on him to pull over and help. And his wife is looking at him like, dude, you don't even do that for me. You know what I mean? But you're going to jump out here and help this woman. You know what I mean? That's that superhero mentality. That's that superhero syndrome, that rescuer syndrome. We have a natural propensity to be caretakers over the opposite sex. Okay, you follow me? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa," men are the caretakers, protectors, and maintainers of women. Bima faddala Allahu bihi ba'dahum 'ala ba'd, because of the bounty that Allah has given one of them over the other, wa bima anfaqu min amwalihim, and because the men spend from their money, they spend from their wealth, right? Okay, so that lays down the foundation for our discussion, all right? That men, we naturally have this caretaker mentality. Some women don't understand it. They don't understand why their husbands have this desire to always jump out there and put themselves in precarious situations to help other women at the expense of damaging themselves or their reputation or their integrity or their own marriage. Right? They do that. They do that. All right, so that's number one. So that's me laying down the foundation. So now let's look at a clear example of this. Are there any examples of this in the Quran? Can you think of an ayat, story, or something in the Quran that drives home this caretaker mentality? Yes. The story of Musa, alayhi salam, the story that is mentioned in more than any other story in the Quran. Musa's story, alayhi salam, is mentioned more than any other story in the Quran. And there's a reason for that. And mentioned from, each and every time, mentioned from so many different angles, right? So on this one occasion in Surah Al-Qasas, Surah number 26, ayat 23 and 24, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capturing Musa's fleeing from Egypt to the city of Midian, the town of Midian, right? And when he gets to the town, right, as we know Musa's personality, if you want a glimpse at Musa's personality, look at Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Umar bin al-Khattab was the closest thing that we have in our ummah, in our community as Muslims, to the character of Musa alayhi salam. When Musa alayhi salam fled to Midian, when he got there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala captures this discussion or captures a glimpse of this incident. I want you to pay attention to the caretaker mentality. Here's Musa running from Egypt, fleeing Fir'aun and his party, running with his life, right? So he gets to the town of Midian. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَلَمَّا وَرَدَ مَاءَ مَدْيَنَ وَجَدَ عَلَيْهِ أُمَّةً مِنَ النَّاسِ. That when he got to Midian, he saw, a community of people. He saw a community of people. يَسْقُونَ, and they were watering their flock. So there's a group of people here at the well. They're all watering their flocks, right? They're watering their camels, their horses, and things like that. وَوَجَدَ مِن دُونِهِمْ امْرَأَتَيْنِ تَذُودَانِ. And he noticed two women standing off to the side, right? Standing off to the side, right? So he saw all of these men watering their flocks, and then he sees two women standing off to the side, right? So what does Musa do? He goes over to the women and he says, "Ma khatbukuma?" He said, "Why are you guys standing here? What's the problem?" Here's that caretaker mentality. He's observing the situation. He sees a group of men watering their camels, watering their animals, and then he sees two women standing off to the side. He goes over to the two women and he says to them, "Ma khatbukuma?" What's the problem? Why are you two standing here? That's the caretaker mentality. You follow me? Men are the protectors and maintainers of women. You understand? So he goes over to the two women and he asks them, "Why are you here? What's the problem?" قَالَتَا لَا نَسْقِي حَتَّى يُصْدِرَ الرِّعَاءَ. They said that we cannot water our flocks until the men finish, right? Until the men finish. So what does Musa do? And they said, وَأَبُونَ شَيْخٌ كَبِيرٌ. And our father's an old man. So their caretaker was an old man. right? Meaning if their father was younger, he would have taken the animals out to water them himself, but he wasn't. So, all right, what women usually do is they step up to the plate, right? Single mothers, they play the role of mother and father because of the absence of the father. They have to do what they have to do, right? They said, "Wa abuna shaykhun kabir." Our father's an old man. So what does Musa do? He assumes the role of caretaker. That's natural. That was natural. Musa didn't have to contemplate. This wasn't like, prearranged. This was a situation he walked into, and he immediately put himself in the place of caretaker. There's a predisposition that we have as men to be the superhero, to step in and save the day, to fix the problem. Well, especially when we see a woman in distress, a woman that is, endangered, right? We have this nature. So what does Musa do? فَسَقَى لَهُمَا ثُمَّ تَوَلَّى إِلَى الظِّلِّ فَقَالَ رَبِّي إِنِّي لِمَا أَنزَلْتَ إِلَيَّ مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَقِيرٌ. So he takes the reins of the animal and he goes and he gives the animals water. And then he gives it back to them. He turns around, he walks away, and he goes and relaxes underneath a tree. And he makes this very famous dua that we learned in the month of Ramadan, where he said, "Oh my Lord, any good that you have." And notice he did some good first. And then he turned around and asked Allah that whatever good you have for me, then I am in need of it now. Right? This is tawassul. You go and do some good and then ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for some good. I'm going to go and I'm going to do something nice for somebody, and then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something nice for me. You understand? That's tawassul. A means of approach, a means of getting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to respond to your request more expeditiously. You follow me? So, this is me, number one, laying down the foundation for this concept. Number two, giving you an example from the Quran regarding this concept. All right? This is the superhero rescuer mentality. All right? Doing some research on this, there is a term in psychology that is used that is called parentification. This is the ultimate role reversal, right? Where sometimes children are put into the role of parents, right? I respond to the comments after I am done. Please listen to the lecture, and then afterwards there will be time for question and answers. I cannot answer your questions while I'm talking. And if you become disrespectful, you will get blocked. So keep it moving. All right? So, parentification. This is the ultimate role reversal where sometimes children are put into the role of parents. Let's talk about when a male child is put into the role of the father. The father is absent from the home. The mother needs parental assistance, but there is no spousal assistance. There is no spouse. She's the only one, and she has a boy. So now what happens is that boy now assumes the role of the father. He's no longer allowed to just be a child. He has to do men things, right? Carry out men tasks, adult tasks as a child. If it's running to the store, if it's taking out the garbage, if it's, whatever the husband would do if he was there, the oldest boy is usually the one that is now responsible for that. Parentification, where the child, the ultimate role reversal, where the child now has to assume the role, or sometimes it could be that one of the parents is sick. That the father is not there, the mother is sick, so the son, and sometimes it happens with women, right? Fatima was given the nickname Abiha. She is her father's mother. She acted towards the Prophet ﷺ as his mother. Absolutely, that was a role reversal because Khadija was not there. Her other sisters, Zainab, Kulthum, Ruqayya, they were all deceased. So there was no one to look after the Prophet. The Prophet ﷺ was well into his late 50s, early 60s. So Fatima was given this nickname, Abiha, her mother's father, because her father's mother, because she used to engage with the Prophet ﷺ like her mother would engage, like Khadija would engage with. Okay, so sometimes, and I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. Sometimes, based upon the family unit, sometimes as children, sometimes we may have immature parents. Some of us were born to parents who had children at a very early age. Sometimes, children end up growing with their own parents, maturing right along with their own parents. If you had a child that's 16, 17 years old, then obviously there is some degree of immaturity there, without a doubt. Your life experiences, your worldview, very shallow, because you at 16, 17, 18 years old, I mean, like, how many times have you been on a plane at 17, 18 years old? You understand what I'm saying? Like, come on. How many times have you been out of your locality, your vicinity? Very, very few. For the average, we're not talking about the exception to the rule who grew up in this country or that country and your parents took you all over the place. You're exception to the rule. You're not included in the discussion. Al-hukm lil-ghalib. As the scholars of usul al-fiqh say, that the Islamic ruling is attached to what is more general, not the exception to the rule. The exception to the rule is la hukm lil-nadir, right? That's another ruling that the scholars of usul al-fiqh say. La hukm lil-nadir. You're a nadir, you're a rarity. Islamic verdicts are not attached to the rarity, right? The rare situation, the exception to the rule. It's based upon what is general. So you're always going to get brothers and sisters say, well, I traveled, or I did this, or I did that, or whatever the case may be. Come on, man. You're an exception to the rule. The vast majority of us, by the time that we're 18, 19, 20 years old, that's when we actually start to grow our wings and fly on our own. Ashad yuhfad wa la yuqas alayh. Very good. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. That the exception to the rule, we preserve it, we understand it, we acknowledge it. However, we do not attach other or connect other rulings to it or connect other situations to it to produce a ruling, because it's a rare situation. It's an exception to the rule. All right. So I don't need brothers and sisters to jump out there and say, well, I did this and I did that. You're an exception to the rule. All right. So sometimes, for whatever reason, I'm not saying that parentification, is a bad thing. What I'm explaining is how this morphs into a mentality that infringes on, the morality of the individual, the healthiness of the individual's mentality. And as men, sometimes we are put in those situations. Sometimes as men, our mothers, sometimes even if the father is around, they call themselves trying to make us mature quicker than what we really are, or quicker than we're really ready to mature. And as a result of that, we end up taking on the role of the parent. All right, now how does this morph into the superhero syndrome, right? How does this morph into the superhero rescuer syndrome? Because as you get older, you start to think or see women, especially if this is a single mother situation, right? The son grows up, he sees his mother struggling with this, struggling with that, struggling with this, and he begins to jump in and help. He goes and he gets a job and he's helping to pay his mother's bills, right? He sees his mother, not necessarily healthy, so he gets up and he takes care of things in the home, right? So he's now assuming the role of her spouse. That's a good thing that he helps out his mother, but we also have to be able to balance that and understand that this role that you're playing with your mother is due to circumstance. It's due to circumstance. This is not the way it is supposed to be. Right? It's due to circumstance. So you have to put everything in its proper place. You have to put everything in its proper place and not carry that, that circumstance and broaden it and make it, the actual rule of thumb of your life later on. You played that role with your mom because of the circumstance that you were raised in. But you have to also understand that as you get older, if you do not correct that mentality, you will see the world through that lens. And you will see every woman who is a damsel in distress, every woman who is endangered or going through some type of trauma, or, you will see them as people that you need to bring into your life so you can make their lives better. This is what parentification does. So now you actually seek women who are damsels in distress. You seek women who are endangered. You go after women who are suffering some type of psychological trauma from some, some experience they had in their lives. You go after women like this because it gives you validation. It makes you feel more like you felt when you took care of moms when you was young. You follow me? It validates you. It makes you feel more whole because you were used to being that person when you were a kid, when you were young. When you were young, you felt like the man because your mother's telling you, oh, thank you, baby, and I love you. I don't know what I would do without you, right? And so as a young boy, this is playing into your ego. So now you don't want a woman that is here with you. You don't want to go after and pursue a woman that will meet you with an equal amount of independence. You want a woman who is codependent on you so you can continue to validate that superhero rescuer syndrome that you are suffering from. Real talk. Real talk. Brothers go after sisters. And the more dangerous, as I shared with you guys before, I don't need to say the imam's name. Nonetheless, it was a very famous imam. We all know who he is, but he said to me years ago, I'll say his name, I said it before, Dawood Adib, right? It's a conversation that I had with Dawood Adib years ago. And he said to me, he said, I used to think that I was the solution to every woman's problem. He said, women would come in my office, right? I was just having a general conversation with him. I'm one of those people, I love genuine conversation. Right? If you full of crap, I usually just turn off and I just nod my head. Yeah, wow. I give you those type. When I do that, that means that I'm in a totally different place because I believe that your conversation is full of crap. But if it's a genuine conversation, I'm engaged. I'm there. I love it. So as I did with many of the different imams, I did it with Abu Muslima, I did it with Abu Osama, just asking them, what do you think your biggest mistake was as a leader in the Islamic community during your time? Right? And he said to me, one of my biggest issues was that every woman that came into my office that had a problem, I thought that I was the solution to her problem. I thought that I could fix every woman's problem. All she had to do was marry me. He said, literally, I kid you not, I used to think like this. Women would come in my office and complain about their marital problems. He said, and I would be sitting back saying to myself, I could fix this problem if she just marries me. And he said, a lot of my problems as an imam, as a figurehead in the Islamic community during my time, stemmed from that mentality. Stemmed from that mentality. So, it's real. It's a real mentality where men tend to go after women who are in distress, go after women who are endangered, go after women who, have some damage. They're damaged, psychologically, mentally, because they believe that by helping this woman, right, that I'm somehow validating that superhero rescuer syndrome. And this is even dangerous, even more dangerous when a brother is already married and he does this in polygyny. I know tons of brothers who have done this and have shared their experience with me. They're already married. They're married. And every time a woman comes along, she can't find a wali. She needs help finding a wali because sisters always, sometimes these women, these specific type of women that I'm talking about, they always exaggerate their situation to make it seem like it's more than what it is, which plays into the ego of the person who's suffering from the superhero syndrome. So it plays into his ego. So she's like, oh, woe is me. I can't find a wali. I'm a new shahada. I need this help. I can't find this help. And then here we go. I can help you. Here, take my number. Anything you need, I can help you out. And I think a lot of times, just putting the best construction on it, man, I think a lot of times it does start off genuine. The brother genuinely wants to help. I believe that. I believe some brothers genuinely want to help. But then it kind of morphs into something more because shaitan gets involved. And we don't realize. And if you really wanted to help the sister, then you would pass her on to your wife. And if your wife really, because sometimes wives introduce these women to their husbands. I mean, I can't figure it for the life of me. Your best friend, your bestie is having problems. And then you go to your husband and you say, sister such and such can't find a wali. You want to be her wali and help her get married? You understand what I'm saying? It's just like, but why would you put your husband, your marriage in that situation? Why would you put your marriage in that situation? You understand what I'm saying? You set your husband up for failure. You set your husband up for failure. Because instead of you saying, well, maybe you need to go to the imam of the masjid, or maybe I can direct you to another masjid where the imam can help you, or I can direct you to somebody else that can assist you, but not my family. Not my family. Especially if the sister's pretty. And especially if you know that the sister has a lot of drama with her. Why would you put your husband in that situation? You know she got drama with her. Every time she enters into a situation, there's drama. But you go right to your husband and you say, Zoji, she's having problems, she don't have a wali, inshallah, can we help her? Can we find somebody for her? And here we go. Yeah, I'll help her, inshallah. Not realizing Shaitan sitting back the whole time, setting the whole situation up because you've overestimated yourself and underestimated him. You can help the sister by directing her to her local Islamic community. And this was one of the things that, Sheikh Tahir was talking about last night, that masajid have to morph into Islamic centers, where it's not just a place to pray anymore. It's now a center that offers a multitude of social, components. We're community. We're community. We have social ills. And just being the imam of the masjid, sometimes the imam is not equipped to tackle all of the social ills that come into his office. Whether it's domestic violence, whether it's family and marital counseling. These things require professional help. And a lot of times the imams are not equipped to tackle that. So when we brought in the scope of the masjid and we turned masajid into Islamic centers where we're offering medical care, we're offering health clinics, we're offering psychological, help, we're bringing in professionals to assist in the social ills of the community, because we have social ills. We have more social ills than we have theological ills. People are not losing their deen because they don't understand Tawheed. But we like to make it seem like Tawheed is the order of the day. And that's not to downplay Tawheed. Tawheed is a factor in our religion. But people are not losing their deen because they don't understand Tawheed. Tawheed, as Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, al-ilm kalima. That knowledge is very simplistic. It's very easy. It's very simple. La ilaha illallah, a very simple concept. Ignorant people, ignoramuses have made simple knowledge complex because of their ignorance. Knowledge, Islam wasn't designed to be the complicated system that we've made it into being. It's very simple. But we invest so much time and energy in that we totally forget about the social ills. And the Prophet ﷺ never ignored that. The Prophet ﷺ never ignored that. So while we held these brothers to be the imams of the Salafi community, that community, they never addressed the social ills, ever. And even the little bit of social ills they do attempt to address, it's always from a very narrow view, because they themselves, as we can see today, suffer from a lot of social ills themselves. Somebody who doesn't have something can't give you what they don't have. If you're suffering from social ills yourself, how are you going to get on the minbar and get in front of a microphone and try to provide, as the poet, he said, Ya mu'allimu ghayrahu, halani nafsika kana dha ta'limu, tasifu dawali li saqami wa dhi dhana, kayma tasihu bihi wa anta saqimu. Like the poet said, O teacher of men, why don't you start with yourself? You're administering cures to everybody else while you're the one that's sick. You're sick. Many in those communities, they are sick individuals, socially sick. which is why they're socially irrelevant, because you can't contribute anything to the social component of the Islamic community here in America when you are suffering from the social ills yourself. So this whole idea of, this damsel in distress, and I need to get, need to get the sister some help, and then you bring in your husband into the situation, not realizing that by introducing the sister to your husband, you have opened the door for shaitan into your family. Right? So, men have this, inshallah, I'll post it. Men have, this mentality, the superhero, this rescuer, syndrome, and then let's now take it a step further. This is the danger as it relates to what he is bringing into his family. Now, let me tell you what happens after he marries her, because this is the critical point. So when the superhero marries the damsel in distress, marries the woman who he usually goes after these type of women, the superhero syndrome, the rescuer, he doesn't go after women that don't need to be rescued, because then that would make his whole plight invalid. You follow me? If you're a superhero and you're a rescuer, you're not going to go after a woman who does not need rescuing, because then that would make your whole plight invalid. That would mean that there's no longer a need for the superhero. Batman can hang his cape up. He's no longer needed. Right? We no longer shine the bat symbol in the sky no more, because we don't need you anymore, because the woman doesn't need rescuing. Right? So they don't usually go after women who are independent, women who are, very secure within themselves, right? They go after women who have been. So now, once he marries this type of woman, right, he has to continue to validate that superhero syndrome, right? So although he sees all of the drama and the trauma that this woman has brought into his life, he never says anything to her about it. Because if he says something to her about it, then that's going to create conflict. He doesn't want conflict. He wants to be continued to be seen as the superhero, as the rescuer. Because the moment he begins to ruffle feathers in that marriage, what happens? What does the damsel in distress do? I want you guys to tell me. What happens? Never play the hero long enough that you begin to become the villain. Right. Never play the hero. No, she doesn't leave. No, she doesn't leave. She does what is called the gaslight theory. Anyone familiar with this? This was a movie. It was a play, and it will turn into a movie. No. She wants to be rescued. They both sick, and they both feeding off of each other. He's sick because he got the superhero rescuer syndrome, and he needs to feel validated. She's the damsel in distress, and she needs to be rescued constantly. So when he starts to wake up, reality starts to set in that I married somebody who was a drama queen. She's brought all of this drama into my life. He doesn't really want to say anything to her, because then by saying something, he's trying to correct a situation that's going to end up invalidating him, right? And then when he does say something, she doesn't want out of that situation because she enjoys being rescued. She loves it. So what does she do? She doesn't lessen her value. She lessens his. She does the gaslight theory. She starts to make him believe that it's his fault that she needs rescuing. It's your fault. You pursued me. You married me. All of these problems that I'm having in my life are because of you. Right? Starts to make you feel like you are the problem. You've been gaslighted, man. So now you're saying to yourself as a man, I know I'm a good man, but she makes me feel like I'm less than. She makes me feel like I'm the problem. And then you start to, rethink your whole persona. And you know what I mean? Like, and there's actually nothing wrong with you. The only thing wrong with you is you wanted to be the superhero. That's the only thing that was wrong with you. You're a good man. You're a good husband. There's nothing wrong with you. But now you start to second question yourself. You start to say to yourself, well, maybe I'm not a good man. Maybe I am a poor excuse for a husband. Maybe I need to start doing better. And then you start to work extra harder. She done played a mind game on you. She done manipulated your mind because she still needs to be rescued. She doesn't want out of the marriage. She's not asking for a divorce. She enjoys being rescued. She enjoys y'all both sick and y'all both need each other. You understand? It's like the book that was turned into a movie, Gone Girl. I don't know if you guys saw that. Right? They're both sick. She needs you and you need her. You need to be valid as the superhero, as the rescuer. Right? So you allow her to bring all her drama and dysfunction into your life because you still have that need to be valid as a superhero. You did it with your mom. You did it with grandma. You did it with so many other women in your life, and, you know, they loved you for it. They praised you for it. They validated you for it. And so you spend the rest of your life searching for that validation, man. So you go out and you get you a project. You know, you find a woman who needs saving. They serve each other's purposes. Absolutely. You're right. He needs to be he needs validation, and she needs rescuing, constant rescuing. So she doesn't ask for a divorce. She doesn't want out. She gaslights him. She manipulates his mind into thinking that he is somehow responsible for the distress that she's in, for the drama in her life. He is responsible for that. So now she projects all of that onto him, which only makes him work harder. Only makes him work harder. Eventually he burns out and realizes that he needs a different type of damsel in distress. The need to feel valid is still there. Right? The need to feel valid is still there. But he's overexhausted himself, overextended himself. How does she stop her need to be rescued? We'll get to that. What is the sister's personality called? I don't know. I haven't gotten to that. Damsel in distress? Possibly. Haven't gotten to that. This can go multiple ways. I mean, this could be vice versa, even with the woman. Some women, as I was talking to my wife earlier, some women have this idea of the princess syndrome. Some women have the idea where they feel like, they are the one that is the superhero. So some women feel like they have to have a project, right? You ever seen a woman with a guy and you're saying to yourself, why in the world is she with him? Like, she could do so much better than him, right? And a lot of times it's because of that need to feel like I can make him into something. Some women love a project. So you go get the worst dude that you can possibly find, and then you're going to make him into something. And then you can always take ownership of every single success that he has in his life. The Florence Nightingale syndrome, right? You understand? You can live vicariously as a woman. You can live vicariously through every single success that man has in his life, because you can say, I made him. I made him. I made him. Every single success that he has in his life, he wouldn't be who he was if it wasn't for me. I can take ownership of every single success he has in his life because I made him. Some women, and you'll see a lot of this with women who are, messing with men that are incarcerated. This is classic syndrome with women who are married to or messing with men who are incarcerated. When men are incarcerated, women feel like, okay, he's in a situation now where he can't really do much. So now he needs me. So I'm the rescuer now. So now I'm going to bring him clothes. Now I'm going to put money on his books. Now I'm going to, sometimes even not show up at a visit so he can call and scream on me and find out. So that lets her know that he still wants her, right? Some women, let me share something with you, brothers. Sometimes when you're incarcerated, the woman doesn't come see you personally. She does this for a reason. She knows today was your visit day, And she didn't come on purpose, right? She didn't come on purpose because she wanted you to pick up the phone and scream on her. Why didn't you come? Today was my visit day, blah, blah, blah. Because that feeds into that mentality of the Savior. He needs you. You understand? And we have a lot of people out here that's suffering from this, man. And then the woman is invigorated now because she got the phone call, even though he screamed on her, yelled at her, even threatened her. The next time you miss a visit, blah, 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 blah. It's nothing to be sorry for, sister. I mean, like, if that was who you were, I mean, when we know better, we do better. The objective is not to make anyone feel bad here. The objective is to put this on the table. It's not unreal. This is real talk. This is as real as it gets. This is as real as it gets. That was my first husband. I'm still recovering 10 years later. I don't know. This type of discussion right here is as real as it don't get no realer than this. You kidding me? Everybody needs somebody. We're not ruling out, people's need to relationships wouldn't exist if people didn't need something from somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about a person not being needy. Being needy is part of our disposition as human beings. We're needy. We're going to always need God. We're going to always need. Why did you think that Allah created Adam first and then created Hawa from his rib? You understand what I'm saying? The closest part to his heart. The purpose of the rib cage is to protect the heart. And Allah took one of his ribs and created his spouse from that rib. You understand? Because there was a need. Allah didn't, if it was no need for the opposite sex, then Allah would have just left Adam here by himself. There was a need there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took something from Adam, took his rib from him and created his spouse. So there's a constant need that's when women have from men and what men have from women. What men need from women. So it's the healthy need. Yes, Sister Noor, it's the healthy need and the unhealthy need. So we have to begin to look at what are our needs. So as men, we need to ask ourselves, although there's a natural disposition that we have as men to want to be the caretaker, to want to be the superhero, to want to be the rescuer. It's just a matter of rescuing the right person. Not the person that is going to, feed into the rescuer mentality, but someone who is going to make you feel like a man, but also help you to recognize and acknowledge this syndrome that is very unhealthy. So you can stop putting yourself in situations with women that continue to demoralize you, continue to dehumanize you. You walk away from a marriage feeling less than a human being. No marriage should make you feel like that. You shouldn't leave any marriage and have that person have played on your mentality so bad that you feel like I am the worst person in the world. I am never going to get married again. You understand? This is probably why we like taking overseas women and bringing them to the West, save them and give them a better quality of life. Super Mario going across the world to save the princess. There's a thought for you. There is a thought for you. No, I think that stems from something totally different. That stems from something totally. That is not going across seas to save a damsel in distress. That is, something else. I'm not even going to go into that because that's going to pull us away from our conversation. All right. So the issue here is not that men should take being needy or being need to feel like they are the man, off the table. Every man wants to feel like they are the man. Every man wants that feeling, right? But there's a difference between wanting to feel like you are the man and you feeling like I want to be the superhero and the rescuer. That is above and beyond. That is beyond what is necessary for you as a man. That is beyond what you need as a man. You don't need that in a relationship to feel like the superhero, the rescuer. We are naturally, that's who we are naturally. الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. Men are the caretakers, protectors, maintainers of women. That's our natural role. But when we start now feeling like we need validation for that role, then that is when it becomes a problem. We need validation for that. So I go after women who are in a less than, fortunate situation, and we bring those women into our lives because those women are needy, and they're going to play right into the superhero rescuer mentality. They're going to play into that, and they're going to feed that. And because she needs rescuing, we feed into that. So we're silent about the drama and everything else that she brings into our lives. We ignore that. So now let me ask, why does a man do this? Why does a man, feel the need? Why doesn't logic kick in that this woman, is not necessarily good for you? This woman is unhealthy. Why doesn't our logic kick in? Because our man logic tells us she needs help. I can help her. The only person that can, ego, absolutely. The only person that can help her is me. And I tell brothers all the time, they're like, this sister, you asking a brother, like, how did you end up in this situation? You know what I'm saying? It's a classic situation with brothers with, going into polygyny the wrong way, right? Always starts off, you wanting to be her wali or you wanting to be her wakil, and then you end up feeling her. Well, you were feeling her from the door. You just didn't want to make that known, right? You were feeling her from the very beginning. When she first came to you and said, I need a wali, I can't find a wali, gave you this whole sob story, right? Because we sisters get their stories down pat. Oh, what was me? Can't find a wali. I really need to get married. I've been single for this amount of time. And the brothers, we absorbing all of it. And we're saying to ourselves, I can help this sister. You really are feeling her from the very beginning. Instead of you being honest with the sister and say, you know what? I really have an interest in you. Nothing for nothing. I have an interest in you. Is it possible that I could introduce you to an imam who could facilitate this situation for us? And, I really have an interest in you. I would like to know more about you. Instead of him saying that from the door, he overcompensates and says, oh, no, I can help you. I can help you. Inshallah, I'll be your wali. I'll be your wakil. Right? And the whole while, you're not even looking for anybody for her. You're not looking for anybody. She's calling you, texting you. Hey, did you find anybody for me yet? No, I'm still looking, sister. Inshallah, we got to find the right brother. Because you're a good sister, right? And you both so intoxicated, you can't really see the shaitan at work. You can't see the shaitan at work. You can't see, your own weaknesses being played on. Classic situation. You can't see shaitan working on you and her because you're so intoxicated, so inundated. Right? So, it doesn't matter whether he's a student of knowledge or anybody could be a victim of this. This is not something that some people are exempt from, some people are not exempt from. This can happen to anybody. This is not putting people on pedestals. Well, that's not me. And that's just because it's not you doesn't mean that you are better than somebody that is suffering from this or has suffered from this. This is not what this is about. This is us identifying some of the ills in our communities to make us more healthy, to allow us to have more healthy relationships. You understand what I'm saying? So we can stop, exploiting one another, for our own personal reasons, man. You know what I mean? Like we have to stop exploiting people because we can't recognize our own diseases, our own ills. And so we're sick and then we go in and we're affecting other people, man, with our sicknesses, man. We have to stop infecting people with our own sicknesses. If you're sick, then you need to go get cured. Don't go marry somebody who continues to prolong and extend your sickness. No, we want healing, man. We want healing. And the only way that can happen is that first we have to recognize we're sick. As the scholars say, nisful ilaj, ma'rifatul illa nisful ilaj. Recognizing the sickness is half of your cure. Recognizing. I mean, it could have happened with students overseas. It can happen to anybody. It can happen to anybody. Anybody is subject to that. What happens if it's a student overseas? Whether it's a student overseas or whether it's a imam or whoever, nobody is exempt. And wrong is wrong. And we call a spade a spade. We call it as it is. But we got some real ills in these communities, man, because of these issues not being addressed, because we're constantly talking about Tawheed, and then we talk about Tawheed from a very surface perspective. The three aspects, Tawheed, Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah, Asma wa Sifat, right? And you have girls being molested in homes, girls being raped in homes. You have, women being battered and abused in domestically violent situations. And you talking about Tawheed, Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah, and Asma wa Sifat. This is real stuff that go on every day. And that's not to say that those three aspects of Tawheed are not important. That's not what I'm saying. Though they are important. But everything, kullu shay fi mahallihi, everything is in its proper place. You can't sit around and talk about the fundamentals of Tawheed when you see people suffering from serious illnesses. And our religion has the cure for it. And you sitting around talking about what the Sheikh said and who he warned against today and who we should not take knowledge from and who we should take knowledge from. One of the things that brothers and sisters are going to be sadly mistaken about is that all of these brothers that y'all thought that y'all should have been taking knowledge from, and you don't listen to this person and you take from these group of brothers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to pick apart single-handedly every single one of these individuals that y'all propped up to be these great imams, these great scholars, these great individuals of the Salafi community. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you don't see what's happening, he's going to pick that whole group of individuals apart one by one. Ibn al-Qayyim wrote a whole piece on this called Zallatul Alam, the mistake of the scholar. When people prop people up like that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to humiliate them. And we do it every single time. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's way of humbling us as a community, because we're always looking for, the Trojan horse. We're always got this Jesus syndrome. And I pray that we don't do it with Sheikh Tahir Wyatt. He's our brother. We love him. But don't turn around and do to him what we've done to the other imams in the past. Because every imam that we did it to, Wallah al-Azim, every single imam that we've done it to, Abu Muslima, Dawood Adib, Abu Osama, every imam that we did it to, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had another plan. Kid you not. Every single individual that we've done that to. Stop propping human beings up to this level. This Jesus syndrome where this person is going to come in and now be the savior. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to humiliate us. Ibn al-Qayyim has a passage in one of his books called Zallatul Alam, when the scholar makes a mistake. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may forgive the scholar for the mistake. The scholar is wise enough to make tawbah and repent for his mistake. But when the mistake is made amongst the general masses might not be aware of the tawbah of the scholar, and they continue to follow the mistake of the scholar. And thus the scholar is forgiven and goes to Jannah, and the general ignorant masses who follows his mistake, unfortunately, may not be as fortunate as the sheikh. Very beautiful passage. Now is not the time to translate it, because when you translate information like that, it's always viewed as a lens of, blah, 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 blah. Nah, you're not ready to hear that. Some people are just really not ready to hear the truth. And you got to let them sit with their ignorance for a while until they're tired of being ignorant, and now they're ready to hear the truth. Now they're ready to hear the truth. But, we have to stop doing that to people, man. Stop propping people up to being like this, Jesus, like this savior coming in to save the day. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that can change our condition. We work diligently in the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then we leave the rest up to him subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no savior that's going to come back and make our situation better. That's a collective responsibility on all of us to do our part. There's no one person that's going to come along and make everything better. That's how people get sucked in with the concept of the Dajjal. Because the Dajjal pops up out of nowhere when the world is in turmoil, and he starts to perform these miracles and everybody's looking for the savior. So everything that we need to fix our situation is in the Quran and the Sunnah. Everything. Everything. What's my thought on gay marriages? Are you a Muslim asking me this question? Or you're a non-Muslim? I need to know that before I answer your question. When your husband is seeking these women who need help and it destroys the family, what do the wives do? Very good question. When you're married to a man who goes after these type of women and continuously brings these women into your marriage, what do you do? First, I think that you should open that discussion with your spouse. Your spouse may not even know that he's suffering from this syndrome. Your spouse may not even know that he is suffering from this. So you may try your best to bring it to his attention that this is what is happening. You've been married multiple times. I'm good with polygyny. I don't have a problem with polygyny, but it's the women that you marry. The women that you continuously bring into our lives. You understand what I'm saying? Like, this is real talk. You have women who are married to men who suffer from this. And they're constantly finding themselves in polygynous situations with women who come in and they bring all of this dysfunction into their families. And every time the woman says to the man, yes, but I get criticized for not accepting the LGBT community. Sister, let me give you and I'm glad, alhamdulillah, you answered that. The same response that I would have given to you if I wanted to see where you were coming from first, whether I needed to change a little bit in my response to you or be nice in my response to you. So I'm glad you responded. When people corner you and ask you what is your take on the LGBT community, very easy to respond to that. You can say, I feel, or my opinion about gay marriage is the same position that God takes. Whatever God says about gay marriage, that's exactly what I say. Stand behind God. Stand behind Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which is where we should be anyway. Allah says in the first ayah in Surah Al-Hujurat in Surah number 49, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tuqaddimu bayna yaday Allahi wa rasuli wattaqullah. O you who believe, do not put yourselves forward before Allah and His Messenger. We stand behind God and His Messenger. You understand? Don't put yourselves forward. Don't put your intellect and come at it with a philosophical, intellectual response. Nah, I say whatever God says. So when you ask me, what's my position on the LGBT community or gay marriage, what does God say about it? What does God say about it? Does God say that a man marrying another man or a woman marrying another woman, give me anywhere in the Bible where that was allowed, right? Didn't God destroy a whole nation of people for that behavior? So that is an indication that God is displeased with that behavior. In the Old Testament, New Testament, and in the Quran. So I say what God says. That's an easy response. It takes the focus off of you and now challenges them to deal with what divine revelation says. You don't have to worry about what my opinion is. My opinion doesn't matter. It's where I derive my opinion from. Where did I get my opinion from? Don't worry about, I'm nobody. I'm nobody. Don't worry about what my opinion is. What did God say? Because that's where I got my opinion from. That's where I arrived at my conclusion from what God said. And whether you're a Jew, Christian, or Muslim, atheist, agnostic, whatever your, faith is, at the end of the day, nobody can argue with that. Nobody can argue with that. Nobody can argue with that type of response. So, when people corner you, don't back down from that. Stand behind God. Stand behind God. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tuqaddimu bayna yaday Allahi wa rasuli. O you who believe, do not put yourselves forward before Allah and His Messenger. Stand behind Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I stand by God's words. I stand behind the words of God and his messenger. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so going back to the question the sister asked about, going back to the question the sister asked about, a husband being married to a husband who continuously marries, has this, keeps continuously marries these damsel in distress, these women who, come in that are very, needy. They need rescuing constantly. It's a very toxic and a very dysfunctional situation. Absolutely. And to be a woman who is okay with polygyny, but you're married to a man who keeps marrying women like this, eventually you reach your threshold. Eventually you reach your point where you're just saying, you know what? I can't do this. I can't do this. So you have a choice. You can either try to get him to see what he is doing, or you can recognize your own, threshold, your own limits, and say, you know what? Perhaps you need two damsel in distresses, because you can't marry a damsel in distress and be married to a woman who is very independent and secure within herself and wants to have a happy, healthy relationship with you, but you continuously marry women who bring a lot of drama and dysfunction into our marriages because they constantly need rescuing. That's going to be a conflict, because the woman is going to feel slighted, because the man is eventually going to be lopsided. He's going to invest more time and energy into this woman who needs constant rescuing, and eventually leave this woman, as Allah says in the Quran, kal mu'allaqa, leave her hanging in the balance. And that is one of the main reasons why a man should not marry into polygyny, and that is if you cannot be fair. You can't be just with your attention, with your time and quality time. If you can't be fair in that, then you don't need to be in polygyny. So, do I consider divorce what? You got to change your circle, young brother. Change your circle. And the logic is that he makes excuses to validate his unfair time. Yeah, because he's going to constantly say, well, she needs this. She needs this. And she needs that. She needs constant rescuing, right? So he's going to constantly use her situation. And if there is no situation, she's going to create a situation. Every time you turn around, it's going to be something. She needs constant rescuing. It's always something. So the other wife is going to feel slighted, and he's going to justify that with, well, she needs this, or she needs that, or she needs this, and he's going to continuously use it, or you should just be patient. This is your sister in Islam, right? Well, what if you were in that situation? The thing is that I'm not in that situation, and I don't require that. But the fact of the matter is that you are still being unfair with your attention, with your time, because this woman constantly needs you. And what you need to do is just let me go and spend all of your time rescuing her, because she's going to usurp all of your time. What about when the first wife is the one that's okay and then afterwards switch gears? That's a different discussion. I want to kind of keep it on this discussion. Or he says, I want to leave her in a better state than when I found her. Classic. Right, and then you make the other wife feel bad about even requesting for you to spend more time with her. It's like, how dare you? How could you ask for more time in a situation like this? Don't you see what she's going through? She needs help. She needs this. And, you're very insensitive right now, and you need to fear Allah, right? Absolutely. Because that's man logic. Because we don't see ourselves. We don't see the situation. We're steady trying to convince one wife to give us a pass and give us leeway to invest more time with another wife. Absolutely. We're constantly trying to buy more time. And in polygyny, you cannot buy time. You cannot buy time in polygyny. Time is time. It is what it is. There are some situations that come up that require some extra consideration. If the woman is pregnant, if the woman is going through some, postpartum, depression, things like that. There are some situations that are very legit that require the man to invest a little bit more time with one wife than he does with another one. But that doesn't mean that you dismiss the other wife's request for more of your time. You can say, babe, I know that, I know I'm going to try to make it up. I will make it up. I haven't forgotten that you need this or you need that. Not dismiss her and say, how could you ask for more time in a time like this, right? How could you be so insensitive? You see your sister in Islam, we flip it on you. We flip it on you. We'll run the whole, your sister in Islam. And the thing is that if the shoe was on the other foot, it would never be your sister in Islam. When you're catering to the other woman, she don't give a damn about the short changing that you are doing to the other wife. She don't care nothing about that, because as a damsel in distress, as a woman who needs constant rescuing, all she is concerned about is herself. All she is concerned about is herself. And the man in that situation, he is so intoxicated with being the superhero, he cannot see the blatant injustice that he is responsible for. He can't see it. He cannot see it. He is intoxicated with being the superhero. He can't see himself. He sees himself as the rescuer. It's a good trap that good-hearted man falls into. Just can't see it. Well, sometimes you got to step back and take a look at yourself. A lot of sisters out here broken from past marriage and relationships and hold on to that hurt. A brother who is married seeking another wife, she has avoid those type of sisters. Yes, grounds of divorce. Grounds for divorce for a woman is in any situation where she feel like she can no longer uphold her role as a wife to this man. In that situation, she is legislatively, Islamically, she is eligible for khula. Whenever a woman, any situation, there's no specific situation, any situation where a woman feels like she cannot uphold her end of the marriage covenant of maintaining her role as a wife to this particular man in that situation, then she can ask for khula. Because by staying in that situation, like the woman came to the Fatima bint Qais, she said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she said that I have no problem with him in terms of his deen or his character, but I would hate to return to kufr after Allah has, guided me to Islam. Meaning, she would hate to remain in the marriage with him, be disobedient to Allah and ungrateful for the blessings of the husband, right, under those circumstances, which the word kufr here doesn't mean disbelief, it means ingratitude, right? Because the origin of disbelief is ingratitude. It's a total non-recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's right over you to be worshipped. That's where the word kufr comes from. But the word kufr, disbelief, is used interchangeably in the Arabic language with disbelief and ingratitude. The Prophet ﷺ said he saw most of the women in the hellfire. Most of the people in hellfire were women. And he said, why? Kufran and ni'mah. Right? To kufran, which comes from the same word kufr. But here he meant to be ungrateful for the blessings of the husband, or the blessings that the husband is. But how can our sisters find brothers, good husbands with this kind of knowledge and understanding? It's not that you're looking for brothers with this type of knowledge and understanding. Brothers don't come to lectures. Brothers don't educate themselves. I don't know. I mean, it's been like that. I would say for the past, maybe since probably like 2008, 9. I think that there has been in our communities just, everything has kind of like gone downhill. Brothers don't want to learn. There was a time when I first took Shahada, when I first became a Muslim and started coming around the Muslim community, like we used to drive to lectures. If it was Abu Muslima, Abu Usama, Usama Kusi, or any of the scholars that came from overseas, Sheikh Salih Suhaimi, whether from Egypt or from Saudi Arabia, and they came to America, we would pile into cars and drive to these places. Wallah al-Adhim, I remember I was in a halfway house. I wasn't even allowed to leave the state of New Jersey, right? And there was a conference going on in New York, and I wanted to go. And if I had gotten caught in that situation, I would have been sent back to prison. And we got in the car. I left my job. I was working at a barbershop. I left my job because I wanted to be at this conference so bad. I left my job. I got in a car with a group of brothers and we drove to New York to this conference. I risked my freedom. You understand what I'm saying? That's how much the drive to learn was back in like 99, 2000, like, 98, 99, 2000. The thirst for learning. Ali Sabr, you already know, Sheikh. I mean, like, come on, man. Like QSS, you know what I mean? Like when all these conferences, brothers would pack into cars. Brothers would sleep in masajid. They would sleep in the masjid. And there was a thirst for learning. And this was with the men. And now today, everything has been switched. So now the women flock to the lectures. And the men, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Where they at? I mean, maybe after seeing, yeah, absolutely. I'm aware, man. I know, So maybe after, what I saw yesterday, what we saw yesterday at the lecture with Sheikh Tahir Wyatt, maybe that was, this rekindling that spirit of learning. So perhaps, but we got to weed out a lot of stuff that, a lot of these, so-called Salafi imams and, that a lot of drama that they brought into the Islamic community, because they brought a lot of drama into the community. And they've brought a lot of immorality into the community. That's most important. They might have brought some knowledge. They might have brought scholars and all of that other stuff. But they brought a lot of immorality into the community. And they used Islam to justify it. And that immorality that they brought into the community, it destroyed the spirit of our brothers because it made them immoral. It made them immoral. We were already teetering, like many of us who were converts to Islam. We were already teetering, but there was a push, to be moral. There was a push to, be God-fearing and to be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was a push. I remember brothers used to lower their gaze, wouldn't even look up at a woman. I remember that. Where a brother would not even have the audacity to even walk up to a sister and ask her for her wali number. There was a shyness. Man, during that time. And then, once people I contribute a lot of that to Abu Muslima. Abu Muslima was a figurehead as it relates to establishing the modesty in the Muslim community because he shamed that stuff publicly. He shamed it publicly. Absolutely. And he's one of those imams that nothing has ever been said in terms of his morality. Nothing has ever been said about the morality of Abu Muslima. Always been a family man, always traveled with his family, always seen his children, whatever the case may be. That's not to say that he was perfect. But as it relates to the moral component of our community, he shamed that stuff in public. He shamed Abu Hassan Malik in public. And this is public information. You can go back and read The Elephant in the Room for the details of that. Abu Hassan Malik shamed him in public in Germantown Masjid. He said he came to Philly to give a lecture, and when he heard about something that happened with Abu Hassan Malik and some woman, he got in front of the lecture hall and he said, I am not going to give my lecture until y'all get this zani out of here. Get this fornicator, this adulterer out of here. And Abu Hassan Malik was in the parking lot crying because he was embarrassed. And I'm not saying that that was the right approach. I'm not saying that that was the right approach. I'm not justifying that. But what I am saying that there was a push to shame immorality. And when those imams was removed and were no longer a factor, right? These individuals now took the reins of the Salafi Dawah, and immorality began to spread like wildfire. And the sisters were the victims, and so were the brothers. Sisters were the victims of that, and so were the brothers. So much so that many of us still have not recovered from that today. Brothers who used to be very moral, upright brothers, good dudes, turned into complete animals because they were given free reign to do them, and there was no checks and balances. None. Nobody was talking about immorality. As a matter of fact, they were using concepts of the religion to justify their immorality. And one of those concepts was that, so as long as my Aqidah is straight, you can't say nothing about my morality. It's just sin. Everybody sins. You follow what I'm saying? You see how dangerous that thinking is? Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right, Ali Sabr. Absolutely. When you say things like, oh, you're attacking his, personal character, that's personal, Aki. What about his Aqidah? His Aqidah is straight. So now the concentration is on the person's Aqidah, his minhaj, his methodology, and nothing about his morality. Dangerous, man. Dangerous. So now people were flocking to lectures who were known, allowing people to get on the internet. You know what I'm saying? Known individuals. You know what I mean? I ain't going to call no names out because I know if the shoe was on the other foot, you would have Shadid Muhammad's name. But at the end of the day, yes, it is irja. And Brother Ali Davis called it. He called it. It's irja. And this was a concept. Is that basically the Murji'ah are the type of people who say that sins don't affect my iman. Right? This is one of the main concepts of the Murji'ah. And the concept of this is called irja, which means that, they err on the side of hope from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Irja comes from the word raja, which means to hope. So they err on the side of hope of Allah's mercy. So they say sins don't affect my iman. I can commit as many sins and I'm still on the iman of Abu Bakr and Jibreel. Absolutely.